What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our SEC football channel. Tua Tagovailoa, Joe Burrow, Jake Fromm, they are all gone from the SEC. So who will be that next group of great quarterbacks in the Southeastern Conference? Will we see some newcomers, maybe guys that weren't even in the SEC last year, or perhaps some of the young players from last year take that next step and make a big jump and wind up being big-time players this year? We will see what happens. We're going to give you our best guess at who the top 10 quarterbacks will be, not just based off of talent, but also their impact on their team and just all the things they bring to the table, and of course their stats. Statistically, that's going to be a big part of this as well. We actually have a tie for number 10. I couldn't leave one off, and so I just had to put them both on there. So we have a tie for number 10. And both of these guys, we'll start here with Jarrett Guarantano. Both of these guys, I think, have a chance to be in the top 5 of this list, and I think both guys have a chance to not even be in the top 10. They both are really inconsistent, and we'll see, if one of them can really get it going this year. But we start with Guarantano. Last year, over 2,000 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, a 59% completion percentage, 54 rushing yards. He can run. He's pretty mobile, but he just doesn't really run a whole lot. Gets sacked a lot, too, as well. So I think, we saw flashes last year from Guarantano. We'll see if he can put it together this season, take that next step. When he's playing at his best, he's actually a pretty good quarterback. And I actually saw a stat where he was the top quarterback on third downs last year in the SEC. We'll see if he can continue that. And then the other guy is Felipe Franks. We have a lot of question marks about him as well. The injury, how is he going to bounce back from that? Another guy that was really inconsistent at Florida. At times, he looked like an elite quarterback. At times, he looked like an average quarterback. You go back to his 2018 stats, the last time he played a full year, over 2,400 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 58% completion percentage. He also had 350 yards rushing. That's something that he started doing a lot more under Dan Mullen. Will we see that in Arkansas? Who knows? It's a tough one. I think Franks has the talent, again, to be a top 5 quarterback in this league. But we'll see if he can put it all together and also how he recovers from that injury. Number 9 is John Rhys Plumlee. He may not even be the starter. We don't know what they're going to do at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin coming in. Matt Corral is a very talented player, has a really strong arm. Plumlee not as good of a passer, but I think he has to be on this list because of what he brings to the table running the football. He had over 1,000 yards rushing last season, 12 touchdowns on the ground, and he didn't even play all the time. He was splitting time with Corral. That is impressive. That is impressive from the quarterback position. He also had 910 passing yards. Not great numbers there. 4 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions, just a 53% completion percentage. But again, because of what he brings to the table as a runner, that is why he makes this list, because you got a game plan against a guy like this. All right, number 8, speaking of runner, we have another runner, and that is Terry Wilson of Kentucky. He was injured last season. Went down pretty early in the year. He almost threw for 2,000 yards back in 2018. Remember, this is a team that all they did was run the football. So, yeah, I know that's not a lot of yards, but he was pretty efficient, a 67% completion percentage. He did have 8 interceptions, only 11 touchdowns. Probably needs to improve on that a little bit this year, but as a runner, he was very dynamic, 547 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns a couple of years ago. I think you're going to see more of that. This team was able to run the football pretty well last year with a wide receiver at quarterback. Terry Wilson now brings you an arm as well. This Kentucky offense could be pretty dangerous. They got a really good offensive line as well. But Terry Wilson comes in at number 8. Number 7 is a guy we really don't know a whole lot about, and that's Myles Brennan of LSU. You take a look at his career stats: 600 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 60% completion percentage, and that's with very limited playing time, just in mop-up duty. He did have 41 yards rushing last year. Not really a mobile guy. He's a pocket passer, but when he was in there in his time, he actually did run it a little bit. We'll have to see what that looks like this year. But he's got talent around him. The best wide receiver probably in the country in Jamar Chase. Other guys as well. And we saw an offense really flourish last year. He's no Joe Burrow. I don't expect him to be the next Joe Burrow. But he has a chance to be a really good quarterback. He's got a good arm. We'll see if he can put it all together. A lot of people really kind of still doubting Myles Brennan. I'm still kind of on the fence. I just want to see what he does as the starter. Number 6 is Bo Nix. This is a guy that some people have as being maybe 1 or 2 on this list, and other people think he shouldn't even be on this list. a tough one to figure out because he was so bad on the road last year. But he was just a freshman, just a true freshman. I'm going to kind of put him in the middle here at number 6. He threw for over 2,500 yards as a true freshman, 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 58% completion percentage. He made good decisions last year, didn't turn the football over a whole lot. Good runner as well, 313 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's got all the talent in the world. I think he just has to kind of take that next step with the offense. Needs some help at wide receiver. Seth Williams, the go-to guy, but needs some help, some guys to step up, and then I think he'll be able to really emerge this year. Number 5 is Kellen Mond, another tough one to figure out. And this list, I tell you, this is one of the tougher lists that I've made in any kind of list because so many guys are so inconsistent, and we just don't know what they're going to look like this year. Kellen Mond actually was worse in 2019 than he was in 2018. Figure that out. I don't know. Maybe it was that tough schedule. He threw for almost 3,000 yards last year, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 62% completion percentage, had 501 yards on the ground. I think he's an underrated runner. He can run the football. Again, what do we see? Do we see improvement or do we see regression again like we saw last year? He lost some big targets at wide receiver, but he's got some good ones at tight end. We know Jimbo likes to use those tight ends. I expect him to have a better year and at least be back on track with what he was doing in 2018. Mac Jones at number 4. Will he even start the whole year? That is a big question. Last year he threw for over 1,500 yards in limited playing time. Remember, he wasn't the starter until very late in the season. 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. 2 of those interceptions were pick sixes against Auburn. So you take those 2 plays out, he only had 1 interception, a 69% completion percentage, a 186.8 passer rating. That is phenomenal. That is very, very good. He was efficient. I know they make it easy on him because he's got so much talent at wide receiver, but you go back and look, yeah, he missed some big throws, but he made some really good throws as well down the field. He's got enough talent. He's got enough talent around him. I think Mac Jones will be a top 5 quarterback in the SEC this season. How about number 3? Kyle Trask at one point would have been number 1 on this list, and you'll understand why in just a second. But last year he came in and did a really nice job when Franks went down. I think he was actually better than Franks. Threw for almost 3,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions, 69% completion percentage, a 156.1 passer rating. Just an efficient thrower, and he was 3rd team All-SEC at the end of the season last year. He had a big year after, again, Franks went down with that injury. I was really impressed with him against LSU. That LSU game on the road, it was going to be a shootout once Joe Burrow got that LSU offense going. And Kyle Trask pretty much matched him in that game. He played really, really well in that game in a hostile environment. I was impressed, and that was really the game where I became a believer in Kyle Trask. Number 2, though, is Jamie Newman, a newcomer to the SEC. Last year threw for almost 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 61% completion percentage, had 574 yards on the ground as well. Some people will say, well, he's been playing in the ACC. Look at how he did against good competition. Well, he didn't have SEC talent on his team either. He didn't have a Georgia offensive line to protect him. He didn't have the playmakers that Georgia has. So I think that argument really goes both ways. And I really like his competitiveness. I like how he plays when the game is on the line. He brings that running ability. They're changing their offense up. I think he's going to explode at Georgia. I think he's going to have a really solid year. And, I've got Jamie Newman as the number 2 quarterback in the SEC. But number 1 for me is KJ Costello. We're going to go back to 2018 for his stats at Stanford. He threw for over 3,500 yards, 29 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, a 65% completion percentage, a 155 passer rating. I think a lot of people kind of forgot about him because last year he got injured. And if you're an SEC fan, you probably weren't paying a whole lot of attention to Stanford a couple of years ago. So I think there's a lot of unknown with KJ Costello. But if you know this kid, he can throw the football. He is a very talented quarterback, potentially an NFL guy in the future. And you match him with Mike Leach and the air raid offense, I think statistically he's going to blow everyone else away. And I think he's got the actual talent to be the top quarterback in the SEC as well. We're going with KJ Costello of Mississippi State as the top quarterback in the SEC. Sure, there were other guys that, we thought about putting on this list. It was tough. Ryan Hilinski of South Carolina really has impressed me in what he did as a true freshman last year. I kind of worry about the overall offense. Matt Corral, he could wind up being the starter at Ole Miss. Some of the other guys as well you considered putting on this list. I mean, you could even go to the backups. What about Bryce Young of Alabama? Maybe he should be a top 10 guy. We'll see what he can do this year. What about Emory Jones of Florida? I mean, there's plenty of talent at the quarterback spot in the SEC, but I do have two newcomers being the top two quarterbacks in the SEC. What do you guys think about it? I think most people would agree that the number one quarterback will be out of my top three: Costello, Newman, or Trask. I think most people would agree with that. But give me your top 10. List them down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports YouTube channel.